Hello, and I want to thank everyone for attending this virtual session of the Fire Summit. And I am Mary Slone, and I'm here at Floyd Central High School in Floyd County, Kentucky. Absolutely pleased as punch to bring to you some of the experiences that have occurred during this pandemic year with our cohort. That is this beautiful relationship between the global organization known as Narrative 4 and our very own KVEC Educational Cooperative. Just a little bit of a reminder, you'll be seeing on a slide here the schools that have been active participants in this cohort. And what we're going to do today is give you a serious drive-by of some of the amazing things that have occurred during this unparalleled time. I know that for many people it has been a time of challenge, but as you all will see in the title of what this Fire Summit's about, that this has really been a year for my students, and you're also going to see for students in Flat Gap in Johnson County, Kentucky, where the sky literally has been the limit. And I would like to begin with talking a little bit about some of the things that my students were able to accomplish. So here in Floyd Central, I was given freshmen. Since this was a new experience for me, it was like, well, heck, why not? We're going to be doing different things virtually. I'm going to be teaching a group of students that I've not traditionally taught in the past. And I had just been asked that summer to work on a learning model for the novel that had just come out in February called A Paragon by Colin McCann. And Colin is a co-founder of Narrative 4. And this novel, which is absolutely brilliant, it's unsettling, it's a challenge, but it deals with this real world situation that we see happening not only in the Middle East, but that we see playing out around the world. But it does focus on two real men named Rami Elhanan, who is an Israeli. He's a Jewish Israeli man, and Bassam Aramin, who is a Palestinian Arabic man. And it's about the tragedy that brought them together, and it was the death of their daughters. So my students and I, we started on this journey with a paragon that culminated in an experience that is really unparalleled. So to kind of give you an idea, you're going to be seeing a particular clip, and you're going to watch it unfold, where my students actually had to embody one of the men. And they were divided up half and half. Half the class was Rami, half the class was Bassam. And what they did is they had to take what they had learned and read about each man and actually answer a prompt in narrative form as if they were that person, which is the bedrock of the Narrative 4 philosophy of the story exchange. And what happened was pure magic. So you had 15-year-olds in southeastern Kentucky who were able to use their own experience and empathize with people who live literally around the world, and were able to filter what they read into this narrative that was empathetic, that was articulate, that met those things that standards would have us meet. But we didn't have to sacrifice the quality of the experience just to meet a particular standard. If that were not enough, we were then given the opportunity to Zoom live with the very men that my students had embodied. You will also be able to see here where one student in particular, whose name is JD, who did give me permission to show this, was very excited about it, where he is sharing a portion of his narrative that he wrote as Rami. Once you see that portion, then you're going to be able to see Rami's response when, during that Zoom, not only was JD able to look at Colin McCann and say from one writer to another, this is how I approached writing this text, and I was wondering if it was a similar experience for you. You get to see him say this to an author and get to hear the author's response. And not only that, and I'm going to let you kind of find out how Rami responds to meeting the 15-year-old Kentucky version of himself. And it was literally, I don't say this with hyperbole, a life-altering circumstance and opportunity for every single person, whether it was student, whether it was author, or whether it was peace activist. Everybody came away changed.
Okay, I'm JD Fraley, and I have a question for Colin. Um, and it's about how I found it easiest to be able to write about it, like where I found it easiest, and it was the emotion, because where most of us here have experienced loss of family, um, I'd think that that'd be the easiest, and that's how I connected personally. And I'd like to know how you connected to to the novel when you wrote it and stuff.
Well, thank you.
Let me point out something. JD, who were you when you had to write from first person?
I was Rami.
So that's the activity that he's referencing, that when he wrote as if he were. So, Rami, this is you. This is JD. He was you. And so that's what that question was referencing.
I'm honored.
Yeah, and you know, in many ways, I had to become Rami, and I had to become Bassam, but I don't know when I learned this. I never had any great trauma when I was growing up. My mother and father were alive until a healthy age. My mom is actually still alive. I didn't really lose anyone very close to me until I was about in almost 50 years of age. I don't know what it was that propelled me to try to understand what grief and pain means, except that, you know, I had a chance to take a bicycle across the United States in my early 20s. And when I took a bicycle from all the way from Boston all the way to California, in fact, coming down south and spending time down south, I got to listen to people, and I realized that people mattered. You matter. JD, you matter. I mean, Riley Joe, you matter. I mean, your parents matter. Your cousins matter. Everybody matters. The vast democracy that we live in is the democracy of caring about somebody else. And when I realized that, that's when I knew that's what I wanted to write about. For me, I don't want to write really about myself. It doesn't really interest me all that much. I'm kind of boring when it comes down to it. But when I get my hands on the story of like Bassam, I mean, think about it. He's 17 years old. He goes to prison for 7 years. He gets out. He forms Combatants for Peace, and then later, you know, he loses his daughter. He's already a warrior for peace, and then he loses his daughter, and he has the profound courage to go ahead and start to you know, do the thing that he shouldn't do. Because these two men here on your screen, they should not be friends. And the emotion of that, JD, the emotion of that was something that, you know, I couldn't deny as a writer. And I think that hopefully that we can't deny as people who are, you know, properly engaged in the world. And the way you guys are going to change the world, I think, is that you will recognize that. So no matter how much we should be enemies with one another, both these men say constantly, we need to know one another. Because if we don't know one another, in fact, I'm going to let Bassam say it. Bassam, when you talk about knowing each other above ground and below ground, can you say what that is?
Yeah, always I said that we need to share this land as one state or two states or five states, and to know each other while we are alive. Maybe we can survive together. Otherwise, we will share the same land as two big graves to our kids, our families, our people, because the Israelis will never give up their safe place, and the Palestinians will never accept this oppression, this occupation. They need to be liberated, to have their own state, to live in freedom without occupation. So this is the point, that we need to know each other. Otherwise, we will know each other under the ground, and then we have no effect. We cannot change anything.
Perfect. And I wonder, Mary, thank you for that, Bassam. I wonder, Mary, can we go to Ruthie?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't really have a question. I was going to share an important lesson that I was taught, like Emily did. And one of the most important lessons that I was taught was that a person never fully heals from a trauma like that. You just have to learn to deal with it. And I think it's amazing how both of them learned how to deal with it in a positive way, because it's up to you if you deal with it in a positive or negative way. And the lines that spoke to me most about this are, you never heal. Don't let anyone tell you that you ever fully heal. It's the living who have to bury the dead. I pay the price. Sometimes I despair. But what ourselves kill each other. That's already happened. It didn't achieve much. I know that it will not be over until we talk to each other. That's what it says on the sticker on the front of my bike. Joining with others saved my life. And I think that was a quote from Rami. But yeah, that was a really important lesson I learned.
That's incredibly powerful, Ruthie. Thank you. Rami, how would you like to respond to that?
Actually, I'm overwhelmed. I'm so grateful for you being you, for your ability to notice such a. I really have nothing to say. I just full of admiration and emotion.
Thank you, and thank you for noticing, Rami's line, and really it's both of their lines. The living who have to deal with the very dead. It is our job, our responsibility to keep the stories alive in so many ways, the good and the bad stories, by the way.
And I know that's huge and that's grand. And if you have any questions or would like to see more information, please feel free to contact me, because I can pretty much talk your leg off about the multitudinous of things that occurred because of this experience with the novel A Paragon. And you might be thinking, okay, that's all well and good, Mary Slone, but not everybody is always going to have that opportunity to speak to people who wrote a novel. And it could be just because of time. I mean, heck, I'm a really huge fan of Dandelion Wine, favorite book of all time. But, Ray Bradbury is passed and gone on. So what about those of us who maybe are in a different situation, or we have a different grade level? And I'm so glad that you asked, because not only have my students had this amazing experience that impacted them not only in the classroom but out, but one of our cohort members, which is Sabrina O'Brien from Flat Gap Elementary in Johnson County, she absolutely, literally changed the face of how Narrative 4 can look in an elementary classroom. Because Narrative 4 typically to this point has been about high school and middle school. And in the horizon, they were saying, okay, we are going to get into elementary schools someday. And Sabrina said in a pandemic, well, guess what? Someday is today. So she had this tremendous plan of how she was going to implement Narrative 4, the story exchange, in her classroom. And not only did she have the plan, but she worked that plan. And you're going to be able to see in the attached PowerPoint what the plan was, what the initial response was from her students, why they did it, and how it connects to what is expected from elementary in terms of their writing portfolio and being able to communicate. But more importantly and more impressively, you are going to see students articulate what the process is. You're going to see them model the process. And then for good measure, you're even going to hear from the principal, who is going to be able to tell you, even from the administrative perspective, what the power of having Narrative 4 in the classroom really is. And it's because of this cohort that experience and mine was made possible. And it's at this point, I would just like to tell everyone, it is an open invitation that what KVEC is providing with this cohort, with this connection between this global organization, is they are giving us the opportunity to use the agency, to use the power that is here in southeastern Kentucky to not only shape our communities, but also to shape the way education looks in Kentucky as a whole, in the United States, and even beyond our borders. So I just want to thank you all for listening, and just remember that if you would like to contact me, my email will be provided in this presentation, and I really can't wait to meet with you all again next spring and fall to say, here are the great things that have happened, not only in my classroom, but in classrooms that are across this region. So thank you.